Well-deserved honor. One of the best villains on that show.
Because you're a villain?
Yes.
All right.
It's like a boo and clap simultaneous thing. Like, I love you and I hate you, you know.
We love hating you.
Comic-Con 2015, how are you guys?
Okay, so can you kind of introduce us to your character in the show and what some of the challenges in bringing that character to life?
Sure. I play Officer Jake Riley, who is a police officer who gets stuck inside the quarantine when it goes down. And his role sort of becomes, he's the character who we're left watching and wondering if he's going to make the decision that protects himself or the decision that's right for the people and what is, you know, the responsible choice. And he's a guy who's sort of an introvert and he's guarded and he's sort of tough. I did that to her earlier and now I just cut it. Amazing. But he's a tough guy and sort of he's good in his core, but because he's so protected, he doesn't like to show, you know, what he's feeling or how he is. And when he's put in this position, it causes him to want to protect himself at first, and then ultimately he's going to be someone who comes into his responsibility and becomes a hero for the show. So.
He's kind of not necessarily a selfish character, but like you said, he kind of looks out for himself. But yet he's a police officer, which is, you know, a position that usually people take to care for others. So how does that kind of? Do you know why he became a police officer? And
well, I have
how that plays out.
There's a whole, you know, I have a whole backstory for him and how he ended up the way he did, and he makes a lot of sense in his choices. But I mean, when you think about it, he's the only law enforcement inside the quarantine, and there's not a whole lot you can do when it's the masses against one. And the power ultimately is going to become whoever has the weapons and whoever has the numbers, and he doesn't have either on his side. He's the only one in there. So any sane person is going to realize that and sort of retreat into themselves and try to evaluate how they can help the situation. And again, his first impulse is, you know, I was wronged, I shouldn't have been in here, and he's pissed. And he's going to have to work through that as the season goes on and find a way to not just take care of himself, but to try to take care of everyone inside and try to bring the whole thing to a close as best he can with the limited resources he has, because he's only got so much ammo in his gun, and then that's that, you know. So his power is so limited as a law enforcement officer. He's sort of stripped of his title and his respect, and we sort of get to see in the pilot too. They show the teasers of like 15 days into the quarantine, and you can see there's no control. Even when they bring in officers from outside to try to control the situation, there's just no keeping people from trying to do anything they can to stay alive. They'll kill to protect themselves, and that's just human nature too. In the most extreme circumstances, you see people's personalities come through, and that's sort of what the show ends up being about: is unlikely heroes and relationships across impossible borders, and how these interesting characters sort of unite and also come apart, and the evolution of their relationships.
What are some of the challenges of taking on a role that, I mean, this is based on a Belgian series, and you're kind of taking on something that already exists out there. What are some of the challenges in doing that?
You know, one of the challenges is just the natural nature of being compared and you know, looking at one thing and trying to think of how you're going to either replicate it or how you're going to do it your own way. But you know, the easiest fix for that is to just think of it separate, and to that show is a guideline for our premise and for our characters. And now that we have our own spin on the show, our show's going in a different direction. It's the same premise, it's sort of the same setup, but ultimately we're going to go a slightly different direction with everything. For me, it was, you know, that actor is so different than me, and my version of the character is quite different. It's the same character in its description, but the essence of the human being is just so different that for me, they're not even the same. It's not the same character anymore, which is kind of exciting to get to be a part of a show that is, based on another show, but it's taking its whole life in a different way. So
Jake's vulnerability really comes out towards the end of the pilot when he comes kind of face to face with the virus. Do you think that's kind of a turning point for him in like what his role is, or would you say it's a different point in the story?
I don't know if I'd think of it as a turning point for him, just because that's a part of his personality that we just get to see as an audience for the first time. His temper. And that's where his tough guy nature comes in, where his first impulse when he hears that he's stuck inside is anger towards Lex, anger at the fact that I'm a good guy, I work for law enforcement, I don't get trapped on either side, you let me come back through. That's his first thought, and it makes him so angry because he's right, he works with them, and he feels wrong that he was doing his job and now he's left to possibly die inside. And that's not good news to hear. Hey, you're going to stay inside with all these people that you just watched die in horrible ways. There is a pretty lady with him, which makes life easier. But yeah, this guy, I don't know if that's a turning point, but I think that moment is sort of the beginning of Jake's journey inside, because that's his first response. And a big thing for me in life, and also looking at characters, is you have to forgive people their first response, because a lot of times it's not actually how they feel, but it's their impulsive instinct, and that's the case with this guy. He's responding to the circumstances, and now that he's away from it a little bit, we're going to get to see his true self.